The screen opens to a thick Georgia fog, crawling across a plantation. A child's whisper pierces the mist. They made her strong. Too strong. The camera flickers across broken chains in the dirt, a shadow moving in the periphery. The narrator's voice, low and trembling, intones. In 1843, in a forgotten corner of Georgia, a secret was kept that no one dared speak aloud. A girl was bred, not for life, not for freedom, but for power, for fear itself. The wind carries faint, echoing screams. A distant church bell tolls, each strike reverberating like a heartbite, and the screen cuts to black. The plantation loomed over the town like a spectral titan, its white columns yellowed with age and rot. Behind its facade of grandeur, families traded flesh and futures as if they were currency. The girl, named Miriam, was born in the shadows of this mansion, bred for unnatural strength. Her mother, a woman of ethereal beauty, carried the same secret burden. Her lineage had been twisted by generations of experiments disguised as religious piety. The air reeked of sweat, iron, and decaying wood, a mixture that clung to the slaves like a second skin. The overseers whispered that Miriam was cursed, yet they coveted her, fearing and admiring in equal measure. The local church, a high steeple stabbing the sky, was not a sanctuary. Pews were polished with devotion, but beneath the floors lay hidden chambers where rituals of control were enacted. Sermons preached obedience, but eyes watched for strength, for defiance. The preacher, a gaunt man with sunken eyes, would murmur blessings over the children, but only certain children, those marked to become instruments of hidden power. Miriam's small frame was already noticed. She moved differently, her tiny fists clenched with unnatural force, her bones ringing with potential. Not all children remained on plantations. Some, like Miriam, were sent to a nearby orphanage, where discipline was cruelty and nourishment was calculated. The nuns, robed in austere black, whispered prayers that masked obsession. Miriam's muscles, developing at a terrifying pace, drew the attention of the orphanage's secret masters. They tested her, measured her, noted the unusual hardness beneath her skin. The other girls cowered, but Miriam felt a strange, dark exhilaration in her strength. Every punishment, every cold bath, every lash seemed to forge her further, shaping her into a figure of myth, yet bound in the most mundane horrors. Miriam's first ordeal came under the guise of training. Oils, herbs, and forced labor sculpted her muscles unnaturally fast. She barely remembered the women in white robes chanting in corners, their voices a lullaby of madness. The townsfolk whispered about miracles and curses alike, yet no outsider ever saw her. She was a ghost, a creature in plain sight. Her reflection, once soft and childlike, became a canvas of striated strength. Unnerving in its perfection, the overseer, a man with a face carved from obsession, played a sinister game. Each day he would push Miriam to new limits. His hands never gentle, his gaze hungry for evidence of something inhuman. "Strength is the only truth," he said, as she lifted logs heavier than any child should bear. She began to sense the invisible threads tying her to the plantation, the lineage of pain, the family rituals, the church's dark counsel. Every test of her strength was a test of her soul, a question she could not answer. Miriam's mother had left clues in whispers and glances, telling her of ancestors whose bodies had been instruments, who were celebrated and feared in hushed legends. Strength, they said, was both a gift and a curse, a signal to the powerful, a warning to the weak. Her own muscles became a language, one she did not fully understand. They spoke of oppression, resistance, and the unnatural desires of those who claimed divine authority. The nearby town, oblivious or willfully blind, accepted the plantation's veneer of normalcy. Markets thrived, children played, and life continued, but Miriam's legend began to seep into whispers. Women feared her, men desired her, and everyone sensed the tension between awe and terror. No one dared name it. The way her fingers could crush metal, the way she moved like a storm barely contained. Yet all assumed it was folklore, myth, exaggeration. One night, Miriam discovered a hidden staircase beneath the plantation library. It led to a chamber lined with journals, bones, and strange instruments of measurement. Names of children, dates, and cryptic symbols filled the pages. The chamber smelled of earth, sweat, and decay, a mixture that made her stomach turn. The whispers of ancestors seemed to echo, urging her forward. Here lay the truth. She was the product of decades of clandestine obsession, a living experiment meant to demonstrate power, control, and the breaking of human limits. Miriam first tested her strength in secrecy. A chair snapped under her grip, a lock yielded without effort. The sensation was intoxicating, a thrill she could not name. She began to plan not escape, not revenge, but revelation. Each act of physical defiance became a statement of identity, an assertion against the invisible architects of her torment. Yet, the deeper she explored, the more she realized that power came with a cost: isolation, fear, and an unrelenting sense of being hunted. Her mother's stories gained a sharper edge. Generations of women in their family had been strengthened by unnatural means, often dying young or disappearing without a trace. Miriam recognized the pattern and feared its inevitability. But she also felt the pull of destiny, a recognition that her body was more than flesh. It was a vessel for ancestral memory, rage, and endurance. The curse, if it could be called that, was intertwined with power. It demanded obedience, submission, and a life lived in shadows. The overseer grew paranoid. He whispered to the plantation owners that Miriam was unnatural, possessed, and dangerous. His journal detailed obsessions, experiments, and failed attempts to control her fully. He began to drink heavily, his mind unraveling as he confronted the very forces he sought to manipulate. The church, ever watchful, intervened subtly, tightening the invisible chains around Miriam, ensuring that she remained both extraordinary and contained. Miriam discovered symbols etched into beams, hidden in paintings, and sewn into quilt patterns, messages from generations of slaves, from women like her mother, warning of the horrors inflicted in the name of faith and science. Each symbol carried both terror and instruction. She realized her strength was both a tool and a key to understanding the depths of human cruelty, and to confronting the monstrous hierarchy that had orchestrated her existence. One moonless night, Miriam tried to flee. Her body was a storm of motion, muscles coiled like cables under skin. She tore through gates, lifted plows, and struck down chains. Yet the shadows seemed to conspire against her. The overseer's men were never far, and the church's influence reached even into the surrounding woods. Her escape was thwarted, but her defiance left a ripple, a warning that the unnatural strength could not be fully controlled. The townspeople began to notice anomalies: furniture torn, animals missing, shadows moving against the wind. Fear rippled through the community, unspoken but tangible. Rumors spread of a giant girl who roamed the plantation at night, unstoppable and silent. Mothers whispered to children, preachers prayed louder, and Miriam's legend grew. The oppressive structures of church and family began to strain under the weight of the secret they had tried to bury. Miriam's dreams became vivid, almost prophetic. She saw visions of her ancestors chained and broken, of the overseer's mind cracking under obsession, of the church engulfed in flames. Each night, the line between dream and reality blurred, pain and power intertwined. Every sinew, every scar, every memory became a weapon in her subconscious arsenal. She understood that liberation might require confronting not just her captors but the invisible architectures of fear that had shaped centuries of control. The overseer attempted a final ritual, combining religion, superstition, and pseudoscience, designed to crush Miriam's spirit while preserving her body for their twisted purposes. He gathered townsfolk in secret, chanting over her while measuring her strength, recording the supernatural in his journals. Miriam endured, her body vibrating with tension, her mind a hurricane. The ritual backfired. Her unnatural power surged beyond expectation, terrifying all present, leaving marks that would haunt the plantation for decades. In the aftermath, Miriam uncovered the full extent of her family's history, the plantation's secrets, and the church's hidden complicity. She realized the horror she embodied was a mirror of society, itself a machinery of oppression that bred monsters in the name of control. Each muscle, each scream, each silent hour of torment became a testament to both cruelty and resilience. The truth was too enormous for the town to bear. Hidden once more beneath layers of normalcy and denial, Miriam vanished as suddenly as the shadows themselves. Some say she walked into the woods and never returned. Others whisper she ascended into legend, a living symbol of strength, fear, and defiance. The overseer and townspeople spiraled into madness. Objects moved inexplicably, whispers haunted halls, and the plantation decayed into ruins, preserving its secrets for another century, waiting for the next eyes daring to see. Today, the plantation is forgotten. The forest has reclaimed it, but locals speak in hushed tones of a girl, a ghost of muscle and memory, who reminds them of the darkness that lies beneath civility. Archaeologists find bones, journals, and symbols hinting at horrors no one was meant to know. Miriam's story survives in whispers,